After the Lakers were swept by the Denver Nuggets, LeBron James expressed some uncertainty about his future in the NBA. A lot of people think this is crazy and he still has a number of competitive seasons ahead of him, but I think we really have to start accepting that this might be the beginning of the end for LeBron. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and if you're new to the channel, my goal here is to teach you about the medical side of the sports world. So if that kind of thing interests you, then please consider subscribing to help support the channel. I want to examine where LeBron is from a health standpoint at this time in his career. Most reasonable NBA fans would accept that LeBron is at a different stage in his career, but I don't think most people have accepted the reality of really where he is and how quickly this could end. But that's okay, and honestly should be the expectation based on some fundamental facts about medicine and the human body and looking back at LeBron's career. I want to start short term with LeBron's foot injury, and then we'll go a little bit more big picture with his overall career and look at some statistics about his minutes played and talk about some real fundamental biology. This, of course, was the play where LeBron injured his right foot. And at the time, I was honestly pretty stumped. I went back and forth with what this could have been. We came to learn that it was actually a tendon injury in LeBron's foot. There's, of course, that great story about how he saw multiple doctors. They recommended surgery, but then he went to the LeBron James of feet, whoever that might be, who said he didn't need surgery and continued playing on it. Earlier this week, he told some reporters that he was going to get an MRI to see if the tendon had healed and then consider whether or not to have a surgery. It was the right foot, and even looking back at this play in hindsight with everything that we know now, I still have a hard time really knowing fully what tendon this could be. We'll look with our anatomy tool just how many tendons there are throughout the foot and the ankle. The only thing, maybe looking back, there's a little bit of some inversion where that ankle rolls outward a little bit that might stretch more of the tendons on the outside of the foot. But there are still, looking back, knowing it was a tendon injury, it's really hard to say exactly which tendon might have been specifically involved. With our biodigital anatomy tool here, what I've done is shown all the different muscles around the ankle and in the foot. And as you can see, there are a lot of them. The tendon, of course, is the part of the muscle unit that connects the muscle to the bone. Ligaments connect bones to bones, but tendons connect muscles to bones. What I was talking about with that little bit of inversion that LeBron gets, there's two tendons on the outside of the ankle called the peroneus longus and the peroneus brevis, highlighted here in yellow, these big long tendons that wrap around the outside of our ankle, bone prominence called the lateral malleolus, and they're really important to help stabilize our ankle whenever we have something like an ankle sprain. Certainly you can have some little partial thickness tears, what we call like a longitudinal split tear, where there's just a small little tear running through this tendon. But if one of these tendons had completely torn or avulsed off of the bone, I'd find it hard to believe that LeBron would have even been functional enough to continue playing. So I think any of these tendons throughout the foot that we're talking about, whether it's one of these muscles that originates higher up in the leg with a long tendon that goes down to cross the ankle, or if it's any of these multiple layers of muscles and tendons in his foot that would have been torn. When we talk about just severity of a tendon injury, of course, a grade 1 is going to be just a little bit of a strain. Grade 2 may be a more significant partial tear versus grade 3, a big full rupture. I find it hard to believe that LeBron was playing with any sort of true rupture, because when we get ruptures of tendons, we start to lose function. And despite being somewhat limited, LeBron still could have bursts of good function. And no matter how well you can compensate for pain, if you just completely cut a tendon, you're going to lose the function. Now, there are some smaller types of tendon injuries like a turf toe, for example, which can involve this tendon out here at the undersurface of the big toe that maybe you could brace enough, support enough if there was a significant injury. So there are some throughout the foot, but overall I will say that the report of him maybe having surgery doesn't really concern me for his long-term health. I think just the fact that he suffered this tendon injury is a bigger deal, but whether or not he has surgery, I don't really think of as being a big determinant with things going forward. Next, I want to zoom out and look a little bit more big picture with LeBron's overall career and health. But first, a quick shout out and a word from the sponsor of today's video. This video is sponsored by Tommy John. If there's such a thing as having underwear game, mine was seriously lacking before I discovered Tommy John. Like most guys, I would go to your average store and just find the cheapest thing that didn't look awful. But then Tommy John came into my life and changed all of that. Tommy John's underwear and apparel is all about comfort. They're made with premium materials that are designed for movement, and so their underwear in particular is not gonna ride up or bunch up or do all that annoying stuff that poor fitting underwear can do that can honestly just be really frustrating and ruin your day. Tommy John's extended this comfort into loungewear, sleepwear, and what I think of as just really comfortable, cozy clothing that I love to wear around the house in the evening when I'm just chilling or relaxing, or if I'm out just trying to run some nice simple errands. Right now, if you click the link in the description box and use my code BRIANMD2, you're gonna get 25% off plus free shipping within the US on orders over 75 bucks. When you're comfortable in your clothing, it really does just change your mindset throughout the day in a positive way. You don't have to be stressed, you're not worried about feeling uncomfortable or how things look, and it gives you all this time and energy to focus on more important things. And Tommy John really does allow me to have that. So step up your underwear game today, and while you're at it, check out some of their awesome loungewear, sleepwear, and more for both men and women. We've become so used to the fact that LeBron plays at such a high level this many seasons into his career that we really do take it for granted. I love listening to Kevin O'Connor with The Ringer, and he always talks about don't take LeBron for granted. And I think we've just come to expect this really high level of the LeBron of old, despite where the objective facts are with where he's at in his career. The fact of the matter is this happens to every single athlete, where they eventually reach a point in their career where their bodies just don't hold up and they're not competing at the same level. And that's okay. It's nothing we should hold against the athletes. That's normal. That's expected. That's just the way the world and anatomy works. If we just look simply at average minutes played per game, we'll see a similar trend in a lot of big longevity stars of the game. LeBron is shown here in orange, and this is just, again, minutes average per game throughout each season in their career. And you can see what this same trend is for all these other stars: Tim Duncan, Kobe, Jordan, Karl Malone, Dirk, Vince. All of these stars who have had big, long careers have had this same trajectory where the longer they get in their career, the fewer minutes they play, as their body just can't hold up to the workload and their skill and performance drop. A lot of times there are injuries that we can identify within these trends in terms of when we might see decreases in minutes or time played. And if we look at LeBron in his first stint with Cleveland, he only missed around 4.5% of his games. Things were pretty good, no major injuries. When he was in Miami, he missed around 5.7% of his games. Back with the Cavaliers, a little bit higher, 8%. But this recent stretch where he's been with the Lakers, he's missed over a quarter of his games, and that's been because of these more significant injuries. In the 18-19 season, of course, he had the groin strain that held him out for a while. He then dealt with the high ankle sprain, and then most recently this past season, of course, the foot injury. And so when we look at this, there's no reason to expect that normal biology and science is just going to reverse course and suddenly LeBron is going to change directions here and be playing a high percentage of minutes and a high percentage of these games in the next couple of seasons if he continues playing. But again, that's okay. That's the norm. That's what we should expect. And I don't say all this as a knock against LeBron. I say all of this to just look at examining the facts, examining the science, to give people that peace of mind that this is normal. Like, we shouldn't be expecting to see the same LeBron out there on the court. As our bodies age, our tissues just fundamentally are not as capable of maintaining that load and recovering at the same rate as when we were younger. The first phase of any injury, whether it's a muscle, a tendon, a ligament, is the inflammatory phase, where we've got that initial injury, that initial trauma to the ligament. And depending on how resilient our tissues are, the stiffness of our ligaments and tendons, we may have more of this inflammation. We may get more of this initial injury as our tendons change stiffness, as our ligaments change stiffness, as we continue to age and grow. The next phase is this proliferation phase, where now we have new cells trying to come in and help develop new muscle, help to regenerate and heal those ligament and tendon collagen fibers. But as we age, we lose that regenerative capability. And then the final phase is the remodeling. This is where everything sort of gets reorganized and looks more like that normal healthy tissue. And this phase can take even longer as well. So it's not just that people can't tolerate pain as they age, is that fundamentally the healing processes within our body aren't as efficient. They're not as reliable. Our tissues can't maintain the same amount of load. It's fact that as we age, tendons will typically get stiffer, and that affects how resilient they are to load. And there's nothing you can do about that, no matter how much money you have or how much rehab you're able to do ahead of time. No matter what we do, we will never defeat Mother Nature. And LeBron knows this himself. In fact, he made some comments a number of years ago that I even talked about how he'll never be back to 100%. He then talked about those comments in an episode of The Shop where he said, man, I just sometimes get up out of bed in the morning and I ache, and it's like, what the heck did I even do? He realizes in his career right now that his body is not the same as it was 10 years ago. And I think he's been trying to step aside and not be that same star, but this is getting into the basketball fan in me. There's just been nobody else. Sadie hasn't been able to step up and be the star in his place, and so that load gets put back on LeBron. The part of this that worries me is that sometimes when these stars age, if they continue to play too long, we see something more catastrophic, or we see such a drop off from their physical ability that it almost makes us forget about what they were back at the peak of their career. I grew up a Colts fan, and so I had to see Peyton Manning and his noodle arm in Denver, and I really felt like it kind of took away from the rest of his career. My worry is the longer LeBron plays, not only do we risk seeing a decrement in his performance, but we risk seeing that more catastrophic injury, something like an ACL or an Achilles rupture, that is going to be more prevalent the older that you get. Right now, we're at that phase where I feel like we can get these heroic games from LeBron, but we're not going to get a heroic entire playoff stretch. As these years go by, those heroic games turn into heroic halves, which turn into heroic quarters, which turn into heroic stints. And again, this is all normal. This is all expected. This is all part of how athletes age, and something that I think, again, LeBron is very aware of and trying to work through. It honestly wouldn't surprise me at all if he stepped away next season and didn't play. Maybe he gets a surgery on his foot, decides he's just going to walk away from the game for a year, let his body heal up, watch Bronny play in college, and then try and come back the following season, depending on where Bronny is in the league, and kind of give it one last push. That would not surprise me at all and would be a totally reasonable thing to do to try and get his body healed up and prepared if his ultimate goal is to play with his son, is to have that last 1 or 2 years of a final push. But with each of these seasons that go by, those ticky-tack types of injuries that typically you bounce back from in a couple of days start to take weeks. You have that risk of something more significant happening. And I think fans, we all need to be prepared for this. We all need to be expecting this. Be thankful for the time that we had with LeBron and cherish all these moments like we do see in Game 4 where he still is able to turn it on and be that stellar star. This is the unfortunate part of sports. It's the unfortunate part of how athletes age. And thankfully, people like LeBron are lucky enough to be more resilient than others and put in that hard work. But this is still coming. You still can't fight Mother Nature, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if we really are at that tail end where if he comes back, we could see an even more drastic drop. Don't be surprised, accept it, understand that that's normal, and it's completely okay. So that's it for the video, everybody. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.